Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday, October 16th, North Middlesex Council meeting. Roll call, everyone is present. At this time, if there are any pecuniary interests, please forward them through to our clerk. Minutes of the previous meeting from October 2nd. Any business arising, errors or omissions? Seeing none, need a motion to pass the minutes. Councillor Keogh, Councillor Irwin, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. At this time, we do need, we're going into, we need to adjourn a regular meeting and go into quarter revision. And our quarter revision tonight is myself, Deputy Mayor Hodgins, and Councillor Daigle. So I need a motion to go into court. Councillor Daigle, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Joanne?
Mayor and members of council, the report in front of you is for the quarter revision for the Prance Drain Section 76 report. Staff received maintenance requests on various locations along the Prance Drain. A fair and usable maintenance schedule is required to complete the maintenance and request grant from OMAFRA for the maintenance work. The cost to prepare this report is not grantable through OMAFRA. There were no technical designs or surveying done to complete the report. Within the report, there's a schedule of assessment which will be billed out to the landowners, as this is the engineer's cost to prepare the report. The purpose of the quarter revision is to allow landowners an opportunity to appeal their assessments. So the proposed motion and staff recommendation is that the quarter revision confirm the assessment schedules as detailed in the RDOB and Engineering Incorporated report dated August 6, 2024 for the Prance Drain Section 76 report, and that a motion be made to accept the assessments.
Thank you, Joanne. Any questions from members of the court? Seeing none, we have a recommendation in front of us. Moved by Councillor Daigle, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. At this time, we need to adjourn the quarter revision. Councillor Daigle, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. All in favor? Carried. And also then we need to have that, we could reconvene into our regular meeting. Councillor Daigle, Councillor Nerda, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Our next one is petition for the drainage works for the Conlon Drain.
Mayor and members of council, the report in front of you is a petition for drainage works by owners for the Conlon Drain. The landowner is requesting to add a branch onto the existing Conlon Drain as he'll be tiling his fields next July or August. The proposed motion and staff recommendation is that council receive the petition for drainage works by owners for the Conlon Drain according to Section 4 of the Drainage Act, and that council appoints RDOB and Engineering Incorporated as engineer to the project.
Thank you, Joanne. Any questions from the members of council on this? No questions? We have a recommendation in front of us. Which moved by Councillor Keogh, seconded by Councillor Daigle. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. So our next is an improvement, request for improvement of the Pickering Drain.
Mayor and members of council, the report in front of you is a request for drain major improvement on the Pickering Drain. A landowner is requesting to relocate the open ditch on his property to facilitate better farming practices. He's requesting to change the channel to run north-south along the east property line instead of a southwesterly across his field. It will still outlet into the Carey Extension Drain. The proposed motion and staff recommendation is that council receive the notice of request for drain major improvement for the Pickering Drain according to Section 76 of the Drainage Act, Section 78 of the Drainage Act, and that council appoints RDOB and Engineering Incorporated as engineer to the project.
Thank you. We have no one present, so is there any questions from council? I would just ask, so when that change that's going along the fence, that won't have any impact on the neighbors downstream of that?
Sorry?
With that change in where the drain is going to be located, that won't have any effect on the people downstream, the farmers downstream?
We will have an on-site meeting and everyone in the watershed will be invited. So we'll determine, that one answering?
Yeah. Like, so it's not decided yet.
That's right.
Okay.
At the on-site, more members might be involved and ask for other improvements requests as well. So
okay,
this is just the start of it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a recommendation in front of us. Councillor Daigle, Deputy Mayor Hodgins, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Joanne. We have no delegations, department reports. And the first one is economic development and communications, and Felicia.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. So the first point here for the CIP application for the Elsa Craig Art Center, I'm just providing some clarification as the wording can be ambiguous. So I'm just giving a clarification for that.
Any questions on that? We looked at this last meeting. So-
Yeah.
Oh, okay, we have a recommendation in front of us, moved by Counselor Irwin, seconded by Counselor Keo. All in favor? Carried. Go ahead, your second one.
And then, so the second, my first CIP application report, both applications are from Goxthorpe Farms, located at 3610 West Corner Drive. Both reports, I am recommending that they receive the grant of $1,500. The first report being for the planning and building fees for our community improvement plan, the Rural Economic Development Program. And so, yes, that's my first.
Is there any questions on that? Counselor Canellison.
Yes, Mayor Rocco, are we approving both or these requests at this time, or are we going to discuss the other one in a moment?
Just the first one. We're doing
Okay,
right
thank
now.
you.
Any other questions on it? Seeing none, we have a recommendation in front of us. Counselor Irwin. Counselor Daigle, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, Felicia.
So the second CIP application is for the same Goxthorpe Farms located at the same location. And this is for the $1,500 for the professional fees under the same program. And it is my recommendation that they receive that grant.
Thank you. Questions on that? Counselor Canellison.
Thank you, Mayor Ralph. Felicia, is this the same project, just worded differently?
So the first application is specifically for planning and building fees. So that is 50% of those costs, which are related to the plan for this CIP application is for the applicant to build a bunkie, which will be for a short-term rental. So they need different planning and building applications, which will be for those fees. And then the second one that I just talked about, that is specifically for professional fees, which she is planning to use that for the professional planner.
So the professional fees related to the bunkie thing that he wants to build.
Correct.
So it's kind of the same project, but just worded differently, broken down into two different parts.
It's all under the same project. It's just that there's 4 levels of the Rural Economic Development Program under the CIP application. So the first one is for the third and the second
So
one is for
that's my question. So it does qualify, given that it's 2 applications for the same project, he still qualifies?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this? No other questions? We have a recommendation in front of us once again. Counselor Nerda, Counselor Daigle, all in favor? Carried. Our next report is from our CAO, and that is Environmental and Sustainability Working Group.
Thank you, Worship. Report before you tonight is regarding the working group that that's been meeting recently. It was, I'll say, the brainchild of Councillor Irwin to get surrounding municipalities together. Currently, we have 5 municipalities participating in the group and working on some initiatives that we have in common that we can support each other on, whether it be in the initiative itself, for funding, and for other purposes. So in front of you is the terms of reference for the group. One of the first events, I'll call it, that is being proposed is a tour of one of our local facilities. Actually, maybe Councillor Irwin could actually speak to it more because he is the one that met with them, if he would be so willing.
Councillor.
Thank you. Through your worship and to council. So I think there's 6 municipalities who are involved. 2 of them are in Huron County, South Huron and Blue Water, and the other 4, including ourselves, are in Middlesex. We share a watershed, and that's one of the important reasons that we're working together in terms of this project. There's potentially 3 projects being discussed. The first one is looking at the future of organic waste. And I think Councillor Keel can understand that, because we did meet with the people at BRA, and we did meet with the people at Try Recycling in regards to that as a joint project down the road. We were invited, all 6 municipalities, elected officials and senior staff, to tour Try Recycling, with representatives of BRA being there at the same time, to talk about potential futures of organic waste and issues around it. If you've ever been to the Try Recycling facility, it is a tremendous facility. It's very significant for a morning. I think it's 10 o'clock on November 28th to tour the facility with other councils and staff, and have a joint presentation in terms of future of organic waste disposal from both Try and BRA, who are partners in this project. Then potentially other initiatives can come out of that. It was very interesting to listen to the presentation from Try Recycling. And I think we have the PowerPoint slides that we could share with council from their presentation from a previous meeting. You can see in advance of that. Other potential projects, there's other potential projects in coming down the pike, including a joint submission for the Intact Insurance Municipal Sustainability Program, which could give us up to $200,000 towards some sort of environmental sustainability project for our communities. So this is simply an invitation to come out. It is a working group, not a committee, intentionally. So it's an opportunity for the free flow of ideas, structured as such. We tend to have a mixture of these meetings of both elected officials and staff. And I think it's becoming a fairly good forum for a discussion of potential projects down the road. You'll also see in the guidelines here, the guiding principles, that there's a sunset clause, if you look at that. And that is to say that if no action really comes out of this within 5 years, we just stop. It's not something that goes on forever. So we're trying to really make it an initiative, forward-thinking project for all of us. Happy to have entertain any questions on that end.
Questions from council? Yes. Councillor Canellis.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. My first question is, have you consulted with the city since they just implemented on January 1st their organic waste projects?
If I may, Your Worship,
Yep.
We had a long discussion of both Try Recycling and BRA regarding the City of London. And both organizations felt that they were well ahead of the City of London in terms of what they could accomplish. They would suit the needs of rural communities better. And frankly, be careful how I say that, they didn't see the possibility of working with the city at this time, something that they could entertain.
So where would this organic waste be stored or disposed of? Like, where would it be taken? Where would it go?
It would go to Try Recycling, and it's turned into compost.
And is there a fee for that service?
That's one of the things we're going to be discussing potentially at a future meeting. But my understanding is for waste diversion, the fee for garbage pickup and organic is almost the same. So you're actually just transferring out of one pail into another. But I think that's a conversation all council would want to have with both BRA and Try at the invited event.
Agreed. However, instead of paying one entity, you're paying 2 entities. My next question is for this.
Oh, you're not paying 2 entities. Right now, waste from BRA is going to Try Recycling. We're not paying 2 entities. They're working together in a partnership today. So it's still the same partnership.
Very well. Staff time. Do staff have time to participate? Given the enormous workload and the hiring that we're doing to offset the increase in workload, do staff have time to participate in this venture?
Through your worship, at this point in time, I've been participating and attending the meetings. I have had a member of our clerical staff who have been assisting with preparing very basic minutes. But other than that, really, it's the working group supports each other. For instance, even bringing in the snacks. It was another municipality that provided them the last time. We provide the location and everyone comes here. So other than the actual meeting itself, which we have other CAOs attending, other members of councils, economic development, other positions within various municipalities. It's been a very interesting group, and I am certainly happy to participate. I haven't included any other staff at this point in time because of, as you identified, we've got a lot on our plate, and I haven't incorporated that into anyone else's workload at this point, but there might be aspects of it, like this tour, that I may suggest our Director of Infrastructure attend and that sort of thing, but pick out aspects of things to include them in.
My final question, will this then become a budget item?
At this point in time, I don't believe so, other than the odd snack, which we just took out of the administrative budget. Any monies that we're looking for would likely be through granting opportunities, not from our municipal coffers.
Thank you.
Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Your Worship. And if I could just go back to the question around staffing, it's a very interesting question, given that some of the work done on creating these guiding principles was done by clerk from another municipality. Some of the research done on potential projects and funding was done by a staff from another municipality. So what we're seeing happening here is shared effort for common purpose.
And I understand that, but as you know, Councillor Irwin, our staff have been pressed with the heavy workload. We've hired additional staff to compensate for the additional workload. And I'm just asking the question is, can staff accommodate the additional workload that?
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Rest of council? Deputy Mayor Hodges, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Don't know this question. I've just been reading it here. I see there's been 3 meetings taking place. Is this something that's going to be aimed at maybe 4 meetings like quarterly? Is that what you're aiming at?
The intention is, once the group is established, to meet every other month. Okay, so maybe 5 or 6 meetings a year. Hard to meet in the summer, so probably 5.
Any other questions? I would say I was at the first meeting. I haven't been able to attend the other 2. But I think it's a group that has some good people on it that came out with some real ideas. Because I was curious myself where this was going to go, but there's some real ideas going forward here. Some good people on it. I believe it deserves a chance to go forward. Questions? No other questions? We have a recommendation in front of us that we support the participation, moved by Councillor Irwin, seconded by Councillor Nerda. Sorry. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. The next report is from Jaden Hodgins, and that is on the new sidewalks on Queen Street. Go ahead, Jade.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, the purpose of this report is to bring some information to council regarding a new proposed sidewalk that is proposed to be constructed with the ongoing Queen Street water main construction project in Elsa Craig. There was some concerns raised from the board councillor and some local residents about the impacts for the sidewalk. So this report is to bring some information about the need for that sidewalk and why it was included in the design, and to review that with council and make a decision whether we keep it in the design. So within the report, there are some reasons for why the sidewalk was included in the design. One being that Queen Street is a municipal collector road, and our design guidelines require sidewalks on both sides of collector roads. So with the reconstruction, we'd look to bring this road to our current standard. Another reason for the sidewalk to be included was the new development at 92 Queen Street and 84 Queen Street, the new single family homes and the 21 unit townhome development that's geared towards seniors. So just looking at improving pedestrian connections in this part of town and to that site as well, to provide safe and accessible pedestrian connections. And just noting that planning and engineering guidelines generally promote safe, walkable communities, and these sidewalks would provide that. So we did review the impacts of the sidewalk. There were some tree impacts. Namely, there's one tree at the northeast corner of Queen and High Street, a large mature black walnut tree that would be required to be removed. And there was a risk to 2 sugar maple trees north of Church Street on the east side of Queen Street within the municipal road allowance that are at risk of damage from the sidewalk, but we're looking at some options with our engineer to minimize those impacts, push the sidewalk further so it's at the back of curb to mitigate the impact on the tree roots. And we feel like currently we think that we can get the sidewalk through there and maintain those 2 trees in that location. So just some information for council, and then there's an attachment showing the drawings for the sidewalk, and I can take any questions from council.
Okay, questions? Who wants to start? Counselor Nerda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jaden, if we do lose trees, is there a possibility that we can plant more, either trees, shrubs, or any new greenery along the route?
Through the mayor, yes, certainly we could replant following completion of the project.
Thank you, Jaden.
Counselor Irwin, then Counselor Canellison.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. First, I want to thank the Director of Infrastructure for this report. It was certainly, this is my ward, and the residents on this street had a number of questions about why is the sidewalk going in on the east side of the street when we've had one on the west side of the street for a long time. And in point of fact, this is another example, I would say, where we're playing catch up with our official plan. We don't actually have urban design guidelines yet that we're looking at. If you look at this part of the community, we either have sidewalks on one side of the street or no sidewalks. So being consistent with the existing character of the community, having a sidewalk on one side of the street is consistent with the existing character of the community. There is some concern as well around how it would affect the properties of people on the east side where the sidewalk's proposed to go, because there is no sidewalk there now, and some of them will change the configuration of their front yard, et cetera. So I think there's a couple of issues there around it. In point of fact, if we want to maintain a consistent character to our community and to this part of the village, having the sidewalk, existing sidewalk on the west side of the street, rehabilitated with this construction, because it does need work. The sidewalk does need some maintenance on the west side. Keeping the character on the east side of the street would probably be sufficient. And when we get more into our official plan and urban design guidelines, I think we'll have further conversations of this nature. We've had discussions around maintaining character of the community previously. I remember we had a protracted discussion 18 months ago about this. And another potential development in Elsa Craig. So it's just, I think there's just a continuation of we're kind of playing catch up, kind of behind, waiting for a new official plan and trying to respect the wishes of the residents of the community.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Canellison.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Jade, I'm just looking at the drawing here at the map, and it's kind of small and it's hard for me to read. Just how far is the sidewalk going to go? Is it going to go all the way to the water tower?
Through the mayor, the limits for the new sidewalk on the east side are from Elsa Craig Main Street to those new homes at 84 Queen Street. So just not nearly that far. It's just
So just past where the old railroad track used to be then?
correct.
Okay. All right. And sidewalk will be built on municipal property. It's not going to be on the private ownership land, is it?
Through the mayor, that's correct. It's on.
Okay,
municipal
just
property.
concerned when I heard Councilor Irwin's concerns around community guidelines, but I mean, if it's on municipal property, it's on municipal property. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Hodges.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. No, I see in those new houses down there past the railroad tracks, there already is the start of sidewalks there. And I think this would just make sense to join up with the rest of them and make it one continuous path. So I would support this.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Daigle.
Thank you. Jaden, is this sidewalk going in at municipal expense or the developers?
Thank you for the question. Through the mayor. There is a portion of the cost that is the developers because they've already constructed the sidewalk across the frontage of the new homes, most of them. And they were required to bring that connection southerly to Church Street, at least that far. So that portion of it we are doing for the developer, and we're going to be recovering those costs from the developer.
Oh,
I guess the problem I see with it, the developer has put the sidewalk in front of maybe 4 of the homes. And then you've got the driveway where that's supposed to go back to the townhomes. Then you go down, there's I think two homes there now. Where they put the driveway in that one, it's not even in line with the sidewalk. Or where they put the sidewalk in that person's driveway, it's not even in line with the sidewalk. It's gonna be costly. Could we not be using this money to do the trail that we've been talking about and leave that side of the road? Is my understanding when they're done this water project, we're gonna have a new one on the west side, are we not, from Main Street to the edge of town? That meets accessibility standards?
There's a couple things there, so I'll just, through the mayor. With respect to the alignment of the sidewalk in front of those new houses where it is further, it looks like it's further set back. It's still on municipal property, but the reason for that is because there are culverts that were installed there for drainage. So it was per the design. So it does jog back in closer to the curb.
I agree with you on those homes there, the four, but if you go down to where the other two are, somebody's put in their driveway and they put a sidewalk in it, but if you stand on that sidewalk, it doesn't line up with the sidewalk they put in for the other five or other four. Is the sidewalk gonna have a turn like this in it?
Through the mayor, I believe the sidewalk across those new homes is supposed to be straight across the 8 new homes at Front Queen Street.
Across all 9 homes, right? Or 8 homes. Then there's one already that's not.
So it has to be fixed, is what you're saying?
Well, our snowplow operators gonna have to
Yeah.
do a
that's
little
what I'm
bit of a
saying.
dance.
We'll have to look at that to see if there's, okay, it'll have to be looked at to see.
Yeah, I just add through the mayor, if I may. It's still, we haven't assumed that sidewalk or that work that's been done on municipal property for that subdivision. We are starting to work on that process with them of wrapping things up for that subdivision development, but that would be reviewed through that process to make sure it's installed correctly.
Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to reiterate the point made earlier that I'm representing the wishes of the residents of that street who have lived in those homes for decades, some of them. And there is a functional sidewalk on the west side of the street that has to be rehabilitated anyways. So why are we adding one on the east side of the street when they're in this particular part of the community? There is no street with 2 sidewalks on both sides. There are streets with 1 sidewalk and there are streets with no sidewalks. So are we then going to be adding sidewalks to all our streets in the community in future? Is that the plan? Or are we going to try to maintain the character of the village as it is today?
Any other comments, questions from council? So this is to receive for information, but also there needs to be some direction on this, I believe, correct? You're looking, I mean, what's council's wish here? Because the reality is, Councillor Irwin.
I'll make a motion, your worship, if I may, that we do not add the additional sidewalk to the east side of the street. That we focus our attention on rehabilitating the sidewalk on the west side of the street. And I'll leave the walking trail component out at this time.
So, okay, I want to make a comment to that, and that is I want to ask Jaden, if we do anything on that west side, that'll have to be a new sidewalk, right? Because it does not meet the standards that's needed today, correct? If we touch that sidewalk, we're going to have to change the whole thing, aren't we?
So through your worship, we are planning on making some spot repairs to that sidewalk. To
Okay,
my knowledge, that doesn't make us have to reconstruct the whole thing and make it a
okay.
foot wider. Depending on the magnitude of repairs, I don't think there was too many, but you know, if we're out there and we mark it out, and it could be potentially around the same price to redo the whole sidewalk if it ends up being, you know, every 3rd panel or something like that. So we have reviewed and discussed that with the contractor, but currently we're just looking at doing some spot repairs on that sidewalk, and we wouldn't be required to redo the whole thing.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted clarification on that. We need a seconder for Councillor Irwin's motion. Seconded by Councillor Daigle. More discussion on it? Counselor Canelson.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Jaden, if we go with Councillor Irwin's motion to rehabilitate on the west side and not install a sidewalk on the east side, will there be dollar savings, given that we've already paid for the east side sidewalk?
Through the mayor, so I think I said in the report, the approximate
Yeah.
cost of the sidewalk is about $60,000.
Correct.
I didn't include in that the portion that we'd be recovering from the developer, but just looking at the length, it could be $10,000 to $15,000 of that cost. So by removing it from the contract, yes, we would be credited that amount. We wouldn't pay it. So we would save the $60,000 or the $45,000 if you take out the developer's portion. And I just note too, the developer would then still be required to bring that sidewalk down to Church Street. As part of that original plan, there was supposed to be a crosswalk installed, but I would just say there's not a whole lot of detail included within the subdivision drawings of what that crosswalk looks like. I think it's just a simple pavement markings across the road and some signage. So that was in plans that were approved as part of that subdivision design, but I think we would have to also go back and look at that to make sure we do have a proper crosswalk, and there would be costs to that as well, potentially.
Okay, so what we're really talking about is a sidewalk from Church Street to Main Street. Is that correct?
Correct.
To the mayor, that's correct.
Okay, and we've had an ad hoc crosswalk here in Park Hill in the past. That was actually a hazard to anyone who tried to use it. So I think that if there's any kind of a crosswalk installed, I think it needs to be a proper one, a safe one.
Thank you. Other comments? Questions on it? My only comment on not doing the sidewalk is we made the developer put a sidewalk in front of his houses. And why did we do that? It does look odd to see that little bit of sidewalk. I'm just a comment to what's there. Deputy Mayor Hodgins.
Just one last comment there, Mr. Mayor. Number one, when the developers down there were talking, they maybe were expecting this in the discussions that it would be continued on down to Main Street on that side. You know, no, they weren't, they'd be fine with just coming up, but I was thinking that they would say, like, as long as you continued it the rest of the way down there.
Through the mayor, I'm not 100% sure of how that was sorted out with the developer. It was before my time, and I don't know if there was at that point in time a plan to extend it down the east side of Queen Street.
Okay. Last comment I'd make before we go to a vote is I would like to see that black walnut tree taken out no matter whether we put a sidewalk or not. It's right at the corner and it's a mess on the road. So take that tree out, you know, it's just
Your worship, before you call the question, I have an open question through you and to you. With this particular report, was the intent from the director for the decision to be made on infrastructure choices tonight in that would be spending, like, within context, is the rehabilitation of the west sidewalks an appropriate thing to be considered without a report in itself?
Go ahead, Gene. I think there's already have been looking at it. Go ahead.
Sure. So through the mayor, yeah, just to clarify, so the west sidewalks are, that's already part of the contract work included in that contract. I guess the purpose of this report, and maybe I could have opened it up a bit more for council to give direction and make a decision. But because that sidewalk was already included, and in my professional opinion, I think it should continue to be included. I was bringing this report for council's information, but recognizing that there could have been a motion put forth to change that.
Yeah, I think if council, I agree with you, Jaden, if council was deciding here not to do the sidewalk, I don't want you to keep working on it or have them keep working on it. So who else had their hand up? Go ahead, Carolyn.
I'm just going to bring up a bit of a technical issue. Normally motions are not brought in the negative, only in the affirmative. So I'm going to suggest that the motion be amended to reflect that we put the sidewalk in and those who do not want it can vote against it. Usually it's not done in the negative because then you get into double negatives, that sort of thing. So normally it's done in the affirmative or can be worded in such a way.
I'd be happy to reword the motion.
Okay.
That we maintain the current nature of the street as is, which means no sidewalk.
Okay. Second, you seconded that. Counselor Daigle, you good with that? All right.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Counselor,
And if you don't want, your worship, I can add and to cut down the black walnut tree.
no, it's coming down either way. Okay, any other discussion on this? We have a motion in front of us. Who's in favor of the motion? Oh, yes. Opposed? No. What are you saying? In favor of it? Okay. Okay, that's carried 4-3. That motion is approved. Okay, all right, let's come back here to Brandon Drew, you're next, and that is with the facilities repairs.
Mayor Ropp, members of council, the report in front of you is for a community sport recreation infrastructure fund application. Currently, there's a grant out with the province. The minimum ask is $150,000 from them, in which case any successful municipality would have to match their $150,000. As you can recall, staff went to apply for the Trillium grant for West Williams Hall in order to add washrooms with the roof structure. Staff are asking that we defer the roof project to 2025, increase the budget to 300,000 for that project on the assumption of being successful with that grant, in which 150,000 would be reimbursed. That basically leaves a net, if successful, of an additional 25,000 to the project, but it does allow us to complete some washroom renovations in there, as well as some accessibility upgrades at the same time, which otherwise we may not have the funds to do. If we are unsuccessful, we will continue with just the roof and scale back that project back to the original budgeted 125.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Brandon? Counselor Keo.
Thank you, Mayor Ropp. Brandon, I know in previous years we spoke about the condition of the roof in that building, and at the time it was leaking. Have we had some repair done to it to add to its life cycle, or is it on the verge of needing more?
Through the mayor to the councillor, it is still sitting on the verge right now. It's basically hot tar from our staff identifying where we believe the leak to go, put tar down, water eventually penetrates again. So it's basically Band-Aids at this point. We believe we can get through Band-Aids till this grant comes through. If not, at that point, we will just replace the roof.
Follow up.
Do we have an idea how much the roof would be for a total restoration of that roof?
So through the mayor to the councillor, when we went through capital budget, it was identified at about 90,000. That's with no deck repairs. We added about 30% just to make room for any potential deck repairs that may need to be done underneath. Without tearing the roof off currently, we have no idea that the underside is spray foamed, so.
Follow up.
Just one more, Mayor Ropp. So Brandon, my only concern is I would hate for us to have a leaking roof while waiting for money to see if we can continue, because I don't think anything deteriorates faster than something with a leaking roof. Is that something that we would hear back by a certain time frame, or do you think, in your estimation, we have the ability to get through the winter?
So through the mayor to the councillor, I believe we can go up this fall, put some tar down on some areas of concern and carry us through till spring. It's not a cost-effective way to carry through year over year. But for the purpose of this grant, we should know by March 31st. We can't start any works before that. So to proceed with the roof now would eliminate us from any chance of funding for that project, which means the washrooms, we would have to find other significant upgrades in order to make up those costs for the total project.
So if you had approval here tonight for this, Brandon, you would go ahead and find contractors to do the job in the spring. Is that the idea?
So through the mayor to the mayor, if I have approval tonight, what I'm looking for is to be able to write the grant. The grant application is due October 29th. At that point, we would submit the grant for washroom renovations, new roof on the facility, as well as some accessibility upgrades. If successful in that grant, at that point, we would follow, a lot of times at that point, you tender out the work and basically show your finances on that side of it. But should we not be successful, staff would just continue with the roof process in the early winter or late winter, sorry, and secure a contractor for spring, summer.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Knudsen.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. I have a couple of questions, Brandon. Is that building still considered surplus? Because I know we declared it surplus a number of years ago.
So through the mayor to the councillor, at this time, the facility usage is higher than it was at that time. We do have significant rentals in terms of numbers. We're 3 nights a week all through the winter months. And then we have a rugby club operating it out of there, as well as a couple community events. So what may have been surplus 5-6 years ago, does not necessarily mean it's surplus in the eyes of staff now. When we look at future, if that building is deemed surplus and we decide to move on from it to a community group, completing this is something we'll have to do anyways. It's a structure with an unviable roof is not attractive to anyone to take on after. Adding the washroom renovations now only adds value to that facility. If 5 years down the road, it is something that council wants to look at, the value increases of the facility. So in my opinion, it's worthwhile going through this process. But
Okay, so my next question is washroom updates. You identified that. At one time, there's some significant discussion around kitchen upgrades to make it more accessible. Now, you did indicate other accessibility issues. Are you then referring to the kitchen?
Through the mayor to the councillor at this time, no, I believe the kitchen would be too expensive and we would end up increasing towards 350, 400,000. I'm looking at door entryways, enhanced accessibility through our doorways mainly. New operators are quite expensive. Going to more of a fob style system out there would be an option at that point, and just trying to remove barriers at that time.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions? Rest of council? No other questions? We have a recommendation in front of you now. It's changed from what I have here.
I
Go
will
ahead.
read the recommendation
Thank
for
you.
council. So the recommendation would be that council defer the West Williams roof replacement to 2025, and that council increase the project cost to $300,000 to include washroom upgrades, and that council direct staff to apply for the CSRIF grant for the West Williams Hall upgrade.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Keel.
Mayor Rob, just one quick question. Brandon, does that, with washroom upgrade, does that meet the accessibilities?
So through the mayor to the councillor, there would be 1 barrier-free washroom, which is required, and then there would be 7 family-style washrooms where it's just a sink and a toilet in one stall. So yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, we have everyone heard the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Keel. Second by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right, next committee reports, Lake Huron Primary,
There was a meeting last week, but I was unable to attend.
ABCA.
Yes, we had our preliminary budget meeting last Thursday. Unfortunately, there was 3 members of the board were not present, so we did not come to a conclusion. The proposed increase is a 5.3% increase, which would affect the North Middlesex at 4.08% increase plus special benefits, which is fairly significant. There's some discussion to direct staff to bring that down to 2.5% to 3%. However, that decision will be made in 2 weeks, I believe, October, a week from tomorrow, when the full board hopefully will be there.
Okay, any questions for Councillor? No questions? Blue Water Recycling,
Nothing to report.
nothing there. Economic Development,
We have a meeting October 17th.
Local School Advisory,
Your worship, I'm in the process of speaking to the 5 area principals as we look to reconfigure the committee to a project base. I've talked to 4 of them so far. I have 1 principal left, and hopefully I'll have a report for the next meeting.
All right, thank you. Any questions? No questions on that? The rec committee?
We held a meeting 3 weeks ago, I think. Nothing to report at this time.
Just
Counselor,
want to add
Counselor-
one thing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a fundraiser coming up on the 21st for a fundraiser for the walking trail. So if you need tickets, contact ABCA for tickets
and that's on Monday.
on
correct?
Monday, the 21st.
Okay, policy review committee? Anything on that?
We've scheduled our next meeting for next week, next Wednesday.
Okay, Counselor Canellis.
Yes, but I guess my question is for the Director of Infrastructure. I noticed some discussion around the half load limit. Is the policy committee then agreeing to establish a half load limit policy, and will it then be implemented in the spring?
Through the mayor, I believe that we have the necessary bylaw in place for that, and our plans are to implement that in the spring. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? If there's no other questions. The minutes are there from August 14th. Also, the terms of reference update. There's a recommended motion that's come through that the terms of reference for the policy committee be amended to schedule meetings on a quarterly basis, with the chair being authorized to call meetings for urgent matters. We need that moved here at the table. Counselor Daigle, Counselor Teo, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Fire committee? No, there's no fire committee or nothing. Okay, thank you for that brief report. Counselor Irwin.
Not a member of the fire committee, but I did attend the open house the fire department had in both Elsa Craig and in Park Hill. Went to both events, very successful, a very high turnout, and congratulations to the fire department for that.
Thank you. Well said. I would make a comment for the fire committee. There seems to be some confusion in Park Hill of people who are not sure what they're doing with the when they're doing for the sensors for the O2 sensors and the smoke alarms. And they're not going into homes. There seems to be some confusion. They're not going into homes. They're just knocking on the door, talking with people to talk about some alarms. So there just seems to be a little bit of confusion out there. Budget committee, nothing at this time. Community Development Fund, when is the deadline on that?
Your worship, I'm not sure the deadline, but I would suggest that after the last year's committee met, we had suggested some modifications to how we handle those. I'm just wondering if the committee would like to get back together again and just have a general discussion about that. I think some minor modifications could foreseeably, impact things enough to not only make us have monies allocated more specifically to where they want to go, but also remove things like the flowers from needing to go through the process. And it's even been suggested by our Director of Community Services that we take out ring rentals and facility rentals out of them so that we'll have more money to benefit the community specifically. So what I'm going to suggest is we hold a meeting and have a general discussion about that, and maybe even combining the 2 streams into one stream, so that if you sat on the committee last time, you'll recall that we took great pains to try to get in the right stream. And then when it ended up in the finance department, they got moved about to where the monies were. So in my mind, why did we do that? Why not just have one stream and allocate money where it sees appropriate? So these are the kinds of changes I'm going to suggest, but why don't we take it through the committee first and bring back a recommendation to council?
Okay, so having said that, I think we need to meet before the next meeting. Councillor Canellison, you're on it. Councillor Nerdy, you're on it as well. Correct? And I think before the next council meeting, so we can have some recommendations or after the conversation to bring to council. All right, so we'll set up a date for that afterwards, but if we can meet before the next meeting. And we have to do it, how long do you need to have it for the next meeting?
Your worship, we can call it within 48 hours.
Okay, all right, thank you. Aqua advisory,
Nothing, your worship.
nothing there. OPP, Middlesex County Detachment, OPP Board.
Thank you, Mayor. Only another 16 more days and we'll finally have our first meeting, October 30th.
16
Looking
more,
forward to it.
not on Halloween though,
But
right?
on Halloween, finally
Okay.
gonna have our first meeting.
Well, that's good. That I'm hoping once that board gets going that it'll
Yep.
it'll make a difference.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay, correspondence. Bradford West, Williamberry, Ontario Deposit Return Program. Counselor Irwin?
I'd like us to support this motion. I mean, it's to bring back recycling for non-alcoholic beverages. I think many of us can remember a time when there was that. And there's many jurisdictions that have that currently, but not in Ontario. So this particular letter is to the province to bring in a recycling charge for non-alcoholic beverages, pop, etc. And I'd like to support that.
Okay. Seconder, support that. Counselor Nerda. In favor of supporting that. Carried. Brock, the ride share services. Receive and file. Perry Sound, update Municipal Elections Act. Receive and file. Town of Coburg, support involuntary care of individuals for severe mental health and addictions. Counselor Knowlton, moved by Counselor Knowlton, seconded by Counselor Keough. In favor? Carried. The Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, Blue Box transition. Receive.
I would like to support that. I think there's a number of issues with the blue box transition as we discover and becomes more industry driven. We'll see less material in blue boxes and limits to who can use blue boxes. That's what this particular letter speaks to, and I'd like to support a rethinking of the provincial proposal.
Okay, move to support. Seconder, Counselor Daigle. In favor? Carried. Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, roadside zoos. I'm not sure what anyways, receive and file, we'll leave it there. Waterloo solve the humanitarian crisis. Other and urgent business. Counselor Daigle and then Counselor Nerda.
Thank you. I just have one item. We had a discussion here at council about a road allowance a number of months back, or at least over a couple months back. And I'd like to see a timetable set for when we're going to get some kind of response to this. I sent an email on September 26th to administration asking for a report on this for this council meeting so I could see where we're at on it. I didn't get any response until this evening walking in that it wasn't going to be on.
Okay.
And so I'm looking for a commitment when it's going to be, so I can tell the ratepayers where they're at so they can proceed with.
Sure.
Okay.
Carolyn.
Thank you, Worship. I spoke to the clerk prior to this meeting about this. There's a process, of course, for this. Well, number one is declaring the property surplus to the needs of the municipality so that we can go through the disposition process. Second, based on our policy, which is actually in bylaw form, we would then make the property available if they were wishing to acquire the property to a number of agencies, including a Solid Waste Field Conservation Authority, which may or may not have an interest in it. And if none of those have an interest, then you can make it available to the general public. So the first step would be to declare surplus to the needs of the municipality. Certainly we can bring that type of motion to the next meeting and then make the lands available. The bodies that would be able to acquire the property first would be Towns Valley, the Crown, Sauble Bayfield, or any other commissions or boards of the corporation. So we would have to contact them based on our policy, and then we'd make it available in the open market.
That's for the road allowance, correct? That's just a road allowance portion.
This is to establish the sale of municipal properties. Yep. It is our own process, your worship. I haven't seen that before where we actually make it available to those organizations, but that is what our policy currently states.
So if I may, do you want to speak to this, Councillor Daigle? I'd just make a comment that we would be selling a road allowance through Farmers Field to anyone else, but the farmer does not seem right.
I would agree, your worship.
Because the road was changed. That left the old road allowance and it left that pie-shaped piece in there. That belongs to the farmer. Councillor Daigle.
It was I thought from the last meeting when we originally discussed this, we were looking for a bylaw to see if the road had been closed. Or if we had to do that.
I'm just, your worship, I was handed this just before the meeting. So just looking at exempt classes under the bylaw. And I'll just read that the exempt classes that wouldn't go through that process are industrial properties, cemetery plots, lands used for temporary roads, or conjunction with another agreement with the corporation. So I'd have to see what that specifically meant. Then there's the 1 foot reserves, repurposed lands under the Expropriations Act, lands acquired through the municipal tax sale process, and other lands the council deems in its discretion. So I would like the opportunity to look at these a little more closely and see if this falls under any of those descriptions. And if it does, then maybe we could go directly with declaring it surplus and transferring it to that property owner, which would make the most sense, not to have this out in the open market or to another agency. I'm not sure if it falls within one of those. Without looking at it, I can't say for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think the question you had was when could we?
So yes, and to answer, that was a long answer to a quick question. I will take a look at these. We'll bring back a motion at the next meeting to declare surplus. I'll tell you whether or not any of those apply and then whether we can make it available to the property owner.
Greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other business? Councillor, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended a meeting the last week for the community garden. And I don't know if council or even ratepayers are aware that the community garden is under severe risk of folding as the current volunteers are looking to retire. But I can advise that someone has stepped up to take over the role as the leader in this big project. But they're always looking for volunteers. So if anyone's got a green thumb on council, stick your hand up and volunteer.
Okay. No, that's good to hear that somebody's stepped up. It's good to hear that somebody stepped up. Glad to hear that. Other business. Councillor
Yes, I
Canal.
do. And just to expand a little bit on Councillor Nerda's issue, I also got a call from some people that do the watering of the flowers here in our community. And they're very disappointed to see that they actually travel from outside of the town to come in to volunteer. And there's no volunteers from within the town limits to water these flowers. And they're becoming a little bit exasperated with it, and they're looking to give up their volunteerism in light of the fact that there's no participation from members of this particular community. So we may be faced with a shortage of flower waterers next year.
So we need to put a call out for volunteers to help, correct?
Yes, they did suggest if staff could do it. I said, well, we probably have to hire somebody to do that because they're overworked now.
Okay, but so we need to put a call out for volunteers.
Your worship, I just looked to Felicia and she nodded. I'm sure she knew what I meant to put it out on our social media.
Perfect. Any other business? I do have one, and Jaden, this is to you, and it's, I did talk with you earlier about it. And it is about, I know there's going to be one day or a part day where Elsa Craig #7 is going to be closed at the main corner for them to put that pipe across. When is that going to happen? And if so, when it happens, will there be signage out ahead of time saying when it's going to be closed?
Yes, thank you, your worship, and through you, and thanks for giving me some notice. So I could look into this a bit more and have a good answer for you guys. So they are planning on doing the work through the intersection of Belskirk Main Street and Queen Street on Monday next week. The good news is that they're maintaining traffic through that in the east-west direction and from the south. So it'll be similar to how the traffic was set up early on in the project when they were going through the intersection. But that's a requirement that we put into the contract, that they do have to maintain traffic through that intersection. The one challenge there is with large trucks. And large trucks will be forced to just go either straight through the intersection, east or west. Or if approaching from the south up Petty Street, they'll be detoured onto Narren and up Denfield Road.
Okay.
So it's going to be one day of work next Monday. And we'll be looking to get some notice out on our social media and website in advance of that. But it shouldn't be too much of an impact because they're maintaining traffic.
Is there going to be any signage at the site?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
certainly. Yeah, there'll be signage installed. There's a
Okay.
long haul detour that's installed for the detour route down at Nairn and Petty. So all that signage will go up, and they'll have the large signage advising the detour up this week.
All right, thank you. I know it has to get done. There's pressure happening from, I'm sure, from the county to get that repaved for winter. So thank you for that report. Any other business? Councillor Keel.
Mayor Rob, I just like to add to that, Jaden, I would like someone from the office here to notify the local grain elevators that that will be pretty much non-operational on that day. That way they can advise their customers that they don't have a bottleneck in Elsie Craig.
That's a great point. Any other business? Seeing none. Deferred items from the previous meeting, communications, including county council. Councillor Canales.
Thank you, Mayor Rupp. As our representative on county council, can you share with us when the Nairn Bridge will be completed and when it will be opened?
I believe it's the middle of November,
Okay.
but I don't know if anybody's seen any pictures, updated pictures.
I did.
The base is down and the sides.
Yes.
Just need the finished base to go on.
That's why I asked the question, because it looks like
Yeah.
it's nearly complete.
Yeah, so they're saying it will be on schedule or before.
Great, thank
That
you.
was the last trip.
Yeah, the notice is that it be done by the end of the month, but I saw the same photos, so my feeling is it'll be done quicker than that and hopefully the next few weeks.
But at least they're not behind, right? Like, and it does look good what they've got. Any other questions? Matt? Seeing none, reading of the bylaws.
Your worship, prior to the reading of the bylaws, I believe the CA always wants to make a comment.
Thank you for the reminder. Through you, your worship, we'd like to just introduce our interim treasurer. Ralph, if you could maybe take a seat and think about it or something to the hot seat.
There's no hydro hooked up to that chair. It's honest, it's safe.
Ralph D'Alessandro has joined our ranks. He joined us on Tuesday, right after the long weekend. So he's been here for a whole 2 days, and yet he came back again this morning. We're very happy that he's joined us and is going to be helping us out in other facets that to get things on track while our treasurer has been away. And we welcome him. He comes with significant experience from Lambton County as well as the Yukon Territory. And he brings that expertise with him as well as credentials to boot. And everyone will be very happy that also he's familiar with VADM software, financial software. So We bow in your presence.
It's been 5 years since I worked with Adam, but I spent 18 years dealing with the beast. I'm not gonna pull any punches. It has its good sides and it has its bad sides. But I also heard PSD citywide is in use here, which was something that we used to wrangle the beast in line. So I'll take a look at what we might be able to do to leverage that so that we can get things going and try to get caught up first off on 23, then make sure 24 went the way we think it went. And then you can start planning on 25. And then hopefully everything will be smooth and wonderful after that, because everybody's going to win the lottery this Friday and we'll be fine.
All right, thanks, Ron, and welcome. Welcome. Okay, reading of the bylaws.
Thank you, your worship. That bylaws 85 of 2024 and 86 of 2024 be read first and second time.
Counselor Nerda, Counselor Keo, all in favor? Carried.
Thank you, your worship. That bylaws 85 of 2024 and 86 of 2024 be read third and final time.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. Counselor Irwin, all in favor? Carried. No, we need a motion at this time to go into closed. And for two reasons, one, previous minutes, and also under 239, 2B, personal matters under about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Moved by Counselor Nerda, seconded by Counselor Daigle, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.